Morocco, which was built to host the event in January 2015, is having second thoughts. Even though South Africa, one of two countries approached to be on standby should Morocco pull out, has indicated it is not interested, Sports Minister Mahama Ayariga has stated Ghana is ready to host the event. President Mahama has since indicated no decision has yet been taken, but the Imani boss believes some individuals around the presidency may still want to push the idea for their selfish interest.
There are some precociously wicked people who want to push this agenda, force it, giving all kinds of reasons why this must be held. They say we are ready. We have the, we can, oh, money is not a problem. The money will come from CAF. That's not the point. Football is not all it's not the only thing we eat in this town, is it? There are other things as well.
A public health practitioner at the Ridge Hospital, Dr. Dennis Botte, meanwhile says a lot of work will have to be done if government insists on going ahead to host the tourney.
If it so happens that we are going to host the AFCON, then I believe that a lot of preparation will have to be done. I mean, more, we have to step up the facilities, we have to step up what we are going to, in terms of financial resources, into putting everything in place that will be able to capture or be able to identify who is coming into the country with Ebola. It's going to stretch on us a little bit. But my point is this, that whatever it takes to identify one case of Ebola is the same thing it will take to identify 100 people coming to the country with Ebola.
Ghanaians are now waiting to see what decision comes from Cabinet when they meet to discuss whether or not to host the AFCON tournament. Latif Idrisu's report for Joy News.
President John Mahama, meanwhile, says Ghana has not accepted to host the 2015 African Cup of Nations due in a few months. The president's comments follow public outcry over suggestions that Ghana will be ready to host the continent's biggest football tournament should the original host pull out. This is despite concerns the country will not be able to deal with the associated risk of a possible Ebola outbreak. President Mahama have told journalists in the United Kingdom, where he is visiting, the question of Ghana playing host does not arise because Morocco remains the host.
Countless reports have emerged about the possibility of Ghana hosting the AFCON 2015, which Morocco wants to postpone over fears of the Ebola virus disease. This was followed by mostly negative reactions from many Ghanaians, both home and abroad. In a media interaction with Ghanaians in the UK, President Mahama dispelled these reports. He said, as President of Ghana and Chairman of Cabinet, no such decision has been made.
But we also must make an assessment. We are bidding for 2017, and I believe that by 2017 we will be ready in terms of the facilities and all that. The time is short between now and January when the thing should be hosted. And so if we decided to host, we have to look at issues of accommodation for players. There's a lot of work that should be done before that AFCON is hosted. And I believe that we also need to look at the health issues. And so consulting with the health authorities, which is what the minister explained to me, that even if we wanted to host, we'll have to find out from our health authorities what the level of threat to us is. And so we haven't taken a decision to host. I am the President of Ghana. I chair Cabinet. No such decision has been taken by Cabinet advising me to accept to host. And so we will. I think we must coordinate this issue better so that Ghanaians understand exactly what is going on. I want to tell you that we will take the best interest of Ghanaians at heart. As president, I don't want to see, Ebola spread to my country. And so if Morocco expresses concern that is one of the concerns for which they want a postponement, we are going to look at that carefully before we take any decision whether to host AFCON or not.
Meanwhile, the president says government's decision to airlift $3 million to Brazil during the World Cup was mainly motivated by the players' preference for cash as against a bank payment system. President Mahama said the truth about the entire World Cup fiasco will be established after the World Cup Commission set up to investigate the matter brings its work to closure.
The World Cup and the transfer of money, that's the issue of systems weakness. Our duty as government was to provide the money for the FA, and the FA's duty is to pay the players. Apparently, all the time we've been going to World Cup, they prefer to carry their money cash. So I have to be careful in commenting here because the matter is still before a committee. But all I'm saying is what the committee is doing is lessons learned. We have to learn lessons. They have all had a preference for cash. And so cash is taken and is physically transported and everybody is paid in cash. When we went to Germany, they did it. When we went to South Africa, they did it. And then Brazil, the same thing. And so we must learn lessons from it. A suggestion came this time to pay, the players using the banking system. The testimonies are still going on. I don't know who is telling the truth, who is not telling the truth, but the committee will unearth it. But some people said, the players said, no, they don't want their money through the banking system. They want to see their money physically. The players will say, oh, no, we didn't say we didn't want it through the banking system. So I won't comment on that so that I don't prejudice the work of the committee. But we've learned a lesson. Definitely, if we qualify for another World Cup, there's not going to be cash carried. Preferably, if we can pay the players before they go, put it into their accounts and pay them before they go, so that by the time they go, they know that his 100,000 is in the bank and he won't go and receive it in Brazil and be kissing it and be captured by all kinds of paparazzi. Kofi's point was a recommendation, and I agree with him, to use our creative industry to be able to promote, nationalism and patriotism. We've started something in Ghana, and for those of you who come, you'll see it. The local government ministry is doing some adverts about littering and other things. They intend to expand it. And so if we can get people like Kofi and Co. to join and participate in those little clips, some of them are very, very nice. I've seen them on TV and they, transmit a very good message. And I'm sure that if we keep it up, people would gradually begin to pick up that, these practices are antisocial.
We're staying with the presidency, and President John Mahama has blamed widespread corruption in Ghana on what he describes as deep weaknesses in the country's institutions. He says indiscipline plaguing many institutions is also the result of inadequate supervision. The president was addressing a news conference of mainly Ghanaian media practitioners in London. Gifty Andwapia reports.
The meeting, dubbed Media Interaction and Family Meeting, was to allow for a person-to-person interaction between the media personnel and President John Mahama for their audiences. Outstanding among the issues raised were Ghana's role in fighting Ebola, corruption and quality of education, as well as voting from the diaspora.
We need information to be able to fight corruption. This national service case was a tip-off that was given. We've been battling to bring the wage bill down, and somebody comes and tells us, look, there are so many ghost names in the national service payroll. And so we say, okay, B and I go and investigate. And they investigate and find out, yeah, that's true. I think it's a fight that all of us must wake up to. And I'm determined as president that any cases that come to our attention, we shall investigate and sanction. A member of my parliament is before court in respect of JIDA. How many governments in the past would have had the courage to take their own member of parliament and put before court?
Whilst the president left the rolling out of ROPA to the Electoral Commission's ability to execute, he re-emphasized that Ghana's accommodation of an Ebola center is a necessary move which poses no harm to Ghana.
So everything I've done is to discharge my responsibility as the chairman of ECOWAS and create a facilitating ground for all the international responses that are coming to help us to be able to snuff out this Ebola, to have a convenient location where they can have access to those countries. Because Ghana has the kinds of logistics and resources that make it comfortable for these international organizations to use that as their headquarters. We have to do that to help those countries. We cannot sit aloof and say it's their problem, because if they are unable to handle it, it will spiral out of control. And if it spirals out of control, it will affect us.
On education, he said government's efforts towards a better economy should make available the necessary fund to provide free and quality education. Others included Ghana's ailing economy and sanitation, which led to a conclusion that the nation's systems are weak.
One of the major problems we have in Ghana that creates opportunity for corruption is the weak systems. The systems are weak. And human discretion and human interference is so high that it creates opportunities for corruption. And that is what we're trying to change. And people are kicking against it. You've heard about gift miss. I mean, the accountants in places who just don't want to hear about gift miss. However much you've trained them, they behave like they still don't understand the system. And so you're right, the systems are weak. Supervision is weak.
He emphasized the necessity to deal with the systemic weaknesses from its roots.
And so what we're doing is trying to even introduce technology so that it takes away a lot of the human discretion. And so the gift miss I talked about is the public financial management system. Every government department is supposed to have a terminal. And you must enter your procurements, your invoices and everything in real time based on your budget. And you can only draw down your budget, based on the invoices that you enter.
It has been a rare opportunity, well exploited by the Ghanaian media living here in the United Kingdom. The president himself has exhibited a great deal of cordiality in this interaction with the media. In the catalogue of questions and answers, one consensus seemed to have been reached, that the Ghanaian system and institutions are weak. President Mahama said technological innovations are being implemented to reduce as much as possible human interference and discretion. Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Ghanaian High Commission, London.
Defeated flag-bearer aspirant in the just-ended presidential primaries of the new Patriotic Party has pledged his full support for the party's presidential candidate for the 2016 election, Nana Addo Kufuor. The Member of Parliament for Mampong, Francis Aidoo, who polled 0.91% of the votes, made the pledge when he called on the newly elected NPP flag-bearer at his residence here in Accra. Nana Addo won the primaries on Saturday by a landslide with 94.35% of the votes.
Big President of Nana Addo Kufuor, Francis Aidoo pledged his support for the newly elected flag-bearer and expressed his readiness to play a part in the party's quest to claim power from the ruling NDC come 2016. He said although he had conceded defeat and congratulated Nana Addo earlier on Saturday, he still felt the need to reiterate his commitment to the cause of wresting power for the NPP. Nana Addo Kufuor, on his part, thanked the Member of Parliament for the visit and expressed his desire to work with him.
It's history and traditions. That is what is at stake for us, and what it is going to be able to do in the future for bringing progress to the Ghanaian people. That's really what is at stake. So I appreciate this visit of yours very much. It's in the best traditions of our party. This house, like you said, is your own home, and it's open to you, for both of you. Come and whenever Rebecca's going around, come and yes, it's open to both of you, and let's work together. I think that's what our fellowship expects, and that's what will be to the benefit of the Ghanaian people. So thank you so much for coming, and we keep in touch. It's not difficult. We keep in touch, and let's see what we can do.
Francis Aidoo then made a stop at the campaign office of Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen, where he had a closed-door session with the former trades minister. He later told Joy News the visit was to encourage him while urging all others to put their efforts together in working for the benefit of the party.
So just to be here to commend him, and to encourage one another and to put our efforts together and work for the success of the party. Well, as you are aware, this morning, personally, I was there in Nana Addo's residence to pay him a visit and to once again pledge my unflinching support and my team to him. So we'll work on, as the need arises for a collective meeting. Why not? If it is proposed, and it will be accepted by all.
Meanwhile, Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen is expected to hold a news conference on the future of his political career soon. Reporting for Joy News, Kwabena Chenchen Boating.
My elder brother and friend Nana Kufuor for the overwhelming endorsement by the party.
In a related development, former President Kufuor has congratulated Nana Addo Kufuor for his resounding victory in Saturday's presidential primaries, except for the letter read, quote, "The news of your resounding and overwhelming victory at the just-ended flag-bearer elections of our party has just reached me, and I congratulate you immensely. The competition that the other contestants offered was good and in the spirit of democracy, which is the foundation of our tradition. I assure you of my fullest support in the contest ahead," unquote. Former President John Agyekum Kufuor has meanwhile billed to meet Nana Kufuor and other officials of the new Patriotic Party to discuss the future of the party after its successful delegates congress over the weekend. The discussions, according to the former president's spokesperson, will focus on how to unite the party in order to win power in the presidential and parliamentary elections in 2016. Frank Agyekum says the meeting will take place when the former president returns from a trip to the United States. He said the former president's call on the newly elected flag bearer and executives of the party is something he does all the time, and that this will not be the first. The former president, according to Frank Agyekum, will also take the opportunity to meet with the newly elected flag bearer Nana Kufuor and the aspirant who lost. We're taking a break, but we have more stories coming up. Stay tuned.
I'll take care of you.
All it takes is letting go.
I'll always be by your side.
It's only when you do that you truly win.
Wipe away your tears. I'll be your best friend.
That's when you experience the magic of each moment. Like it's the first time. All it takes is letting go. A great man once said, "The world is won by those who let go." At Star Assurance, we take care of the things you care about, so you are free to be all you can be. Let go and let Star. Talk to us today. Star Assurance, your solid partner.
The ongoing load-shedding program across the country may soon see some improvement. This follows measures taken by power producers to increase the amount of electricity being generated. As part of the measures, the Volta River Authority has increased generation from Akosomo, where the Bui Dam is now operating at full capacity following an improvement in the water level, making some 200 megawatts available. Head of Communications at the Bui Power Authority, Wumbila Salifu, however, tells Joy News the full capacity generation is a short-term measure. He spoke earlier on today's big story.
This week we are being told that we need rather crude oil, which indicates that perhaps we have the plants, but we cannot fuel them, and that is why we need crude oil to power those plants. So those inconsistencies need to be clarified for us to know what really is Ghana's challenge. We have the generator that we've been able to accumulate in the reservoir, and then we need to draw a generation plan such that we will judiciously use the water that will last us for this dry season till next year, somewhere in July, when we begin to have water. And so if we continue at this level of production, what it means is that at some point in the year, we might have to cut back on the level of production.
Meanwhile, the Africa Center for Energy Policy is questioning the sustainability of these short-term interventions. Programs Officer Ben Boachi tells Joy News utility providers are not being straightforward in their submissions.
This week we are being told that we need rather crude oil, which indicates that perhaps we have the plants, but we cannot fuel them, and that is why we need crude oil to power those plants. So those inconsistencies need to be clarified for us to know what really is Ghana's challenge. We have the generating plants available and that we do not have fuel to power them, or the plants are not working and we also have fuel challenge. So that would be two challenges at the same time. But these are not being explained away, and you hear today is the plant, tomorrow is the fuel, which is waste. You know, that clarity needs to be given to Ghanaians, because we know that we have approximately 3,000 megawatts generating capacity, and our peak demand is about 1,900 megawatts. So it doesn't really make sense why we cannot have enough power for our consumption as a country. You know, we know that there are challenges with we and Akosombo, because they depend on nature for water. But beyond that, what is happening to our power plants? Is it because of fuel, or the plants are not efficient and they are not working? That answer needs to come from the generator.
Right. In other news, air traffic controllers with the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority are urging government to expedite action in resolving the impasse between Ghana, Togo and Benin over the management of the Accra Flight Information Region. According to the Deputy President of the Air Traffic Controllers Association, Daniel Nate, even though government has initiated plans, there was still the need for heads of the three countries, especially Ghana, as a major stakeholder to facilitate the process to resolve the issue.
According to him, attempts by Benin and Togo to take over management of their own airspaces has been a long-standing issue between the three countries.
These issues actually came about as let's say, goodwill, which we've not shown so far towards our counterparts. Negotiating with these countries actually has been something that we've done before. In previous times, we have contracts on that issues, but there's still some little foot dragging that has created all these issues, but we hope it will be solved now that it is in the hands of the executive.
He stressed if government does not expedite resolution to the outstanding issues, it could pose several challenges for both air traffic controllers and pilots, because aircraft would have to change frequencies at short intervals.
We have an issue of somehow a threat from the Togo and the Beninois, led by ASECNA, trying to break away from the Accra FIR, which we also believe that is not conducive enough for safety. Poses an issue in terms of revenue and issues in terms of, let's say, safety also. Let's say some amount of technical issues are also imposed in there. So that's why we want to work as efficiently as possible to make this thing resolved.
Meanwhile, as part of efforts to address the language barrier within the aviation sector, a controller pilot's data link has been installed to ensure effective coordination between air traffic controllers and pilots.
We also have equipment that are up and coming now, which is the CPDLC, the controller pilot data link communication, which is also an aid to this language barrier, where we communicate also by data for people and maybe equipment, aircraft that are equipped with such a facility.
The association also called on government to ensure the enforcement of safety regulations in the aviation sector, particularly with the springing up of high-rise buildings near the airport. Matilda Pamagan for Joy News, Accra.
Meanwhile, as part of activities marking the International Day of the Air Traffic Controller on October 20, the association in Ghana has held an open day in Accra to share with the public what they do.
The open day, which took place in the control tower building of the Kotoka International Airport, was patronized mainly by students. An air traffic controller with the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Daniel Nate, explained how they are trained to keep the sky safe and orderly for planes flying through the country's airspace. He said controllers apply separation rules to keep aircraft at a safe distance from each other in their area of responsibility and move all aircraft safely and efficiently through the assigned sector of airspace as well as on the ground.
Air Traffic Control's Day. The day, as it is always to create the awareness of the profession of air traffic control. So today we are marking that day open our doors to everyone to come and know exactly what is happening in air traffic control.
The air traffic controllers, he noted, communicate with pilots using radars based on radio frequencies. On a daily basis, about 250 flights are recorded at the Kotoka International Airport, whereas about 300 flights pass through the Accra Flight Information Region. Matilda Pamaga, for Joy News, Accra.
Now, have you ever imagined living in a community without basic amenities? That is the situation of the people of Yakubu. They have done everything to change the face of the community by getting at least one of their 4 mentioned facilities, but to no avail. They are now looking up to God to come to their aid. Rafiq Salam visited the community and now reports.
Yakubu is an outlandish farming community with over 1,200 residents. Apart from the arable lands and the animals they can boast of, there is nothing in this community that can entice one to stay. They are without electricity, water, health facilities, motorable roads and a decent classroom for educating their wards. The highest learner in the community is still in SS1 at Tuna Senior High School. The road to the community is not one for the faint-hearted, as it looks more like a rice-muddy pitch for combined harvesters than one for normal vehicles. 45-year-old Tomisha Munuri is a mother of 8 and has lived in this community her entire life.
Jala jao doya for drenaporo timayi a ye nina wanya ye a land a ye watan de query timination e sinify ka be bakira school bar and take a bishina art a be a twanya malfia a bem to show bamia.
The only semblance they have of a borehole is one that the district assembly dug over 6 months ago and left abandoned. Meanwhile, they have to rely on this dirty, milky-colored water from a nearby valley and with stiff competition from the animals. In addition to their woes, a valley separates Yakubu from Kenyeri community, and the residents have to swim on a rainy day from one end to the other before they can visit each other. Pregnant women are not spared. Assemblyman for the Sanuri electoral area, which includes Yakubu and Kenyeri, expressed his frustration about the situation.
So in the dry season time, we find it difficult to get water to drink. So we are now going to, we went to this assembly and they gave us one borehole. Then another one down there, but that one is taken out. So in the dry season, they still they don't get water because you use solar.
Residents, however, believe that it is only God who can save them from their squalid servitude, as all calls to their leaders have proven futile. Reports by Rafiq Salam. A report by Rafiq Salam.
We'll bring you business news next.
Good evening. I'm here to bring you the latest in business. My name is Matilda Kweku. The National Petroleum Authority has announced a 2% reduction in fuel prices. The price change takes effect from Tuesday, October 21, 2014. A statement signed by the Public Relations Officer of the NPA, Yaro Kasambata, said the reduction is in accordance with reduction in the prices of crude oil and petroleum products on the world market. It said the NPA has thus directed all oil marketing companies to comply with the price reductions accordingly.
Ghanaian exporters will continue to have access to markets in the European Union with their goods ahead of the country's ratification of the Economic Partnership Agreement with the EU. A delay in signing the EPAs meant that an interim trade treaty with the Union expired on October 1, 2014. The new head of the EU delegation to Ghana, Ambassador William Hanna, in an interaction with the media, however, says trade will not be disrupted as a result.
The interim EPA, which allowed Ghana to avoid any disruption of its export to the EU, expired on October 1, 2014, after 6 years. After the expiration, Ghana can only access the EU market after the Regional Economic Partnership Agreement has been signed. Though the sub-region is yet to ratify the EPA, Ambassador William Hanna says EU market access has been extended until the agreement is signed.
With an agreement that the Economic Partnership Agreement would be concluded. So on that basis, measures were taken to extend the access, but on the basis that there is a conclusion and then we move to signature and ratification and implementation. Because of that, we decided to extend that access. So yes, the access is there. I really don't think that these fears about products coming in are the thing that one should look at. One should look at is, number one, having the continued access to the European market, which I think is vital for Ghana and for ECOWAS for the future. Number two, bringing in investors for the future, and consumers will also benefit if goods are cheaper and of good quality, they'll benefit.
Exports from Ghana, such as tuna and fruits, he says, have not been banned, except they must conform to international safety standards.
I am not aware of any ban, no ban, but let's be cautious. And these areas, again, I've seen this I think in every country I've been in, I've seen the problem of the quality of fisheries. I saw it in Tanzania, I saw it in Uruguay, and I've seen it in Bangladesh. We're always concerned. There's a big market there, but you've got to ensure that the quality is there. You've got to ensure the health standards. But we work with the country, we work with you to ensure that that's improved. And when that's done, it's good for everybody.
He indicated the relationship between Ghana and EU must move to a matured partnership where each party takes responsibility as much as they benefit. Meanwhile, the 28-member European Union has committed more than 500 million euros to help fight Ebola in worst affected countries, as well as support preparedness in countries not yet affected.
Also in business, the Ghana Union of Traders Association is unhappy about comments by New Trades and Industry Minister Spio Gabra regarding his rifts with the foreigners engaged in petty trading in Ghana. Now, according to Dr. Ecole Spio Gabra, expelling non-Ghanaians involved in petty trading could have ramifications, as Ghanaians involved in petty trading in other ECOWAS countries risk losing their livelihoods if those countries decide to also enforce the same laws. The Ministry of Trade and Industry had earlier issued a 30-day ultimatum for those involved to leave some 48 markets across the country. To enforce the directive, a new court has been set up by the Chief Justice, Mrs. Justice Georgina Wood, to prosecute foreigners who engage in petty trading. Deputy National Organizer of GUTA, Clement Boateng, described the latest comments of the minister as shocking.
I must be frank with you, GUTA is very disgusted about this statement coming out from the Minister of Trade. The reason why I'm saying this is, it is the same minister who just about 4 or 5 days ago visited the Chief Justice and asked her to set up a court to prosecute those who are flouting these laws. And if at the same time, within a matter of time, you turn around and say that this action will have a reprisal effects on our brothers and sisters in the West Africa sub-region, then I don't know what the minister is talking about. When we heard this message, quickly our president called the Director of Communication at the Ministry of Trade and inquired from him whether really it was the minister who put out this statement. And what the Director of Communications said that is not what the minister said, but rather maybe he was misreported. So GUTA don't want to believe that really this statement is coming out from the Minister of Trade. And
Now, away from Ghana, Lufthansa's pilots have begun their 8th strike this year, forcing the cancellation of 1,511 flights over Monday and Tuesday. The strike was initially aimed at mostly European flights, but will be expanded to international routes on Tuesday, hitting 200,000 passengers. Lufthansa said that the strike over changes to retirement and pension terms would hit profits and its image. But the cockpit union said it wanted to send a considering a bid for the company's Reebok brand. The Wall Street Journal said Hong Kong's capital and investment funds in Abu Dhabi were considering an offer worth $2.2 billion. The news provided a welcome boost for the German company's flagging share price, down about 40% this year. Adidas bought US-based Reebok in 2006, but has struggled to boost sales. The Reebok acquisition was designed to help Adidas challenge Nike on its home turf and raise the profile of the German company's own brand. That's all we have for business tonight. Up next is sports.
It's now time for sports, and George Aidoo Jr. is here. But the issue is Ebola and the fears over Ebola in Ghana hosting AFCON 2015. The debate has been raging for a while now, but well, it's not going to go away. Apparently, Nigeria says what? They're interested in hosting.
Nigeria says they're interested in hosting, and well, you want to look at it from two sides. First of all, they've managed to contain Ebola, haven't they? And that's a plus for them. But looking at it, they probably might not qualify. And so one easy route for them to qualify is to accept to host the African Cup of Nations, and that sends them into it, and they qualify to host it. So, well, these are some of the things that are going down there. But just talk about it. Well, the African Cup of Nations 2015, should CAF decide that it's going to cancel the African Cup of Nations, I think we still have to play the African Cup of Nations, even though there's Ebola. I think we have to move towards trying to solve the problem than running away from it. Because I asked those who say we must just forget about African Cup of Nations in 2015 and wait for 2017. My question is, I mean, how sure are you that in 2017 Ebola is going to be contained? Okay, because the Ebola we're talking about has been around for about 38 years. How do we get that contained?
But this is the worst form of Ebola we've ever had. I agree. And especially the people who are bringing it up and saying that we can't host or we shouldn't even contemplate hosting.
Yeah, here's the bias.
They say that we don't have what it takes. Okay? Yes, Nigeria may have contained it, but they have contained it for the meantime. And we're looking at, when you talk about hosting a football tourney, it's on a different level altogether. You're having thousands of people coming in here. Coming from all over and coming through porous borders. In our case, very porous borders.
But I understand.
You can't control them.
I understand
and
that.
The experts say that if you send them into a stadium, if the people enter a stadium and there are, 2, 3, 4 people with Ebola and it spreads, how do you trace the individuals who get out of this, or who came into contact with these people?
I think it's an absolutely dire situation to have people go into the stadium with Ebola. But why don't we set ourselves and try and find out how we can stop people from getting into the stadium with Ebola? Now that's an option. We've all left that option. We want to run away from Ebola.
Do we have what it takes? Let me. Do we have what it takes? Before you answer that, does America have what it takes to contain Ebola? Even with all that they have, they still had somebody enter their country with Ebola, infecting other people.
So what I'm saying is that whoever decides to host...
And they have all the facilities.
I know that, but whoever decides to host the African Cup of Nations, CAF should understand that this is a peculiar situation. And CAF should not allow the country to host it all alone. There must be a concerted effort in order to get structures in that. And I have a little template for that.
What you're trying to suggest is then CAF should make the funds available.
Yes.
And I'm saying that America has the funds and
but not only CAF. I mean not only CAF. This is the worldwide problem. We now know. I mean, the USA and the UK know that they have to.
Why would America want to support you? Because invest funds in you
playing a game and hosting
about
a game
25 players
and playing with fire.
This is the reason. There are about 25 players in the English Premier League who will come and play the African Cup of Nations and go back. So it's a worldwide problem. There are players who are playing in the US, players who are playing in the Spanish Liga. So I think it's one that we have to sit down and talk about. Yes, African Cup of Nations in 2015 will have to happen and it will have to take place. Whoever decides to host it must be giving all the support. Not because of Ebola, we cannot stand still and say we are not going to play the African Cup of Nations.
I think
we can go towards
we're being carried away. We're supposed to present the sports.
Yeah. So let me just do this one as well, and then get you. You know, whilst Ghanaians debate the merits and the demerits of hosting the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations, it appears CAF may not have to worry that much. Nigeria appears to be readying itself to host the continental tournament, and Vice President of the country's football federation, Sei Akiumi, has told Goal.com that the country has the capacity to host the Cup of Nations if they are asked, as an alternative to Morocco. The North African country is currently in deliberations over a place as host of next year's finals due to fears over the spread of the Ebola virus. Morocco asked the Confederation of African Football to postpone the tournament to a later date instead of the present January to February schedule, but the governing body is not ready to do so and has written to several countries, including Ghana and Egypt, to ask if they might be able to host the finals. South Africa has already turned down the opportunity to host the tournament. Well, the Super Eagles struggling to qualify for the 2015 tournament, hosting the competition will give them automatic qualification to defend the title they won in South Africa last year. And meanwhile, the health organization on Monday certified Nigeria Ebola-free 6 weeks after the last case of the disease was reported in the country. So we're going to keep this ongoing, and it's a debate that's ongoing. We'll find out if Ghana finally decides. We know the government is considering they want to host the Africa Cup of Nations. Israel won't like that. Now time to talk about one game that's ongoing in the English Premier League, and the woes of Manchester United certainly knows no end. They've got themselves locked into this. The scoreline between Manchester United and West Brom at the end of the game was 2 goals. It was 2-2. We'll just try and do the analysis. But first of all, let's talk about